Think Life Coaching, empowering you to achieve your goals. Hi, guys. Coach Shiv here, back with another series. And this time, this video series is called Working with a Narcissistic Boss. So it's a little bit specific this time. You know, there is a global statistic that over 70% of people don't leave their jobs, they leave their bosses. And honestly, that has been totally true for me. You know, if I look at my career over the last, say, 20 years, let's just look at the last 20 years, not go all the way back. In the last 20 years of my corporate world experience, I worked in 8 different companies. So that's a lot of moving around, right? And then when you drill it down further, of those 8 companies, I actually spent 10 years in one company. So if you take that out of the equation, you're talking 7 job changes in 10 years. And if I look back and think about why I changed jobs that frequently, issues with the boss were definitely part of the picture. Sometimes it was the only reason, and sometimes it was one of the reasons. Now, if you're one of those who's been lucky enough not to have this kind of a boss, and you're having the boss from heaven, then maybe this series is not for you. But at the same time, if you want to know more about this so that you can be prepared for any eventuality in the future, because who knows, what kind of jobs we do in the future and what kind of bosses we have, then please do keep watching. Now, unfortunately, in my career, I seem to be a magnet for terrible bosses. I just seem to attract them. And I have to confess that when I think back to some of the decisions I took, I made mistakes. I could have handled a few people differently if I knew better. So the content that I'm going to provide in this series is primarily from my personal experience and the lessons that I learned that I want to share with you. And of course, I've done a little bit of research into narcissism. So it's a combination of my own experience as well as whatever I've learned by reading. So when we begin this series, which is the next episode will be part 1 of the series, we'll talk about the one key difference between a narcissist and an arrogant person. Now, there are a few differences, and some of them are really subtle, but I believe that this one difference is key. If you're working with a narcissist, you really need to know this difference. So to find out what it is, make sure you watch the next episode. Hi guys. So the first step for dealing with a narcissist is be aware of what narcissism means and what might be the triggers for the narcissist that you work with. In the last episode, I spoke about one key difference between narcissism and arrogance or egocentrism. So that key difference, let's look at that. So an egocentric or arrogant person tends to be self-obsessed, and usually they can only see their point of view. They don't see anyone else's point of view. So if you manage to convince them about your point of view in a calm and friendly manner without upsetting them, then you might bring them round. Now, what about a narcissist? A narcissist is not necessarily unaware of your point of view. It's just that they don't care. They don't give a damn about anybody else's point of view. And in fact, they get angry when others fail to see their point of view or try to convince them. So you need to be aware of this very specific difference so that you know whether you're dealing with an arrogant person or a narcissist. Now we come to triggers. Most narcissists tend to be triggered by something. I'll give you an example, and this is from my personal life. A narcissist could be triggered by stress. Now, the stress could be maybe something that happened at home, so it could be a personal thing, or it could be something that happened at work. Maybe there was an angry customer, or maybe there was a missed deadline or something. And when they're in that mood, it's the last time that you should actually be looking at asking them a question or approaching them with a problem, because then all hell breaks loose. So if you're aware of that, then you know not to approach your boss at that time. See, the reality is if you're going to work with a narcissistic boss, then it's best that you be better prepared through your knowledge of narcissism and what the triggers might be for the narcissist that you work with. Hey, in today's episode of Working with a Narcissistic Boss, we're going to look at a don't. In the last episode, we talked about a do. We said do become more aware of narcissism or narcissistic behavior and triggers. Today it's a don't. And the don't is this: don't let your self-worth be destroyed. Your self-worth tends to take a beating in an environment where you have a narcissist as your boss. I mean, you've got a person who's more powerful than you in the company hierarchy who's constantly battering your ego. So your self-esteem does take a dive. But the important thing is you need to be aware of that. You need to be kind to yourself. You need to tend to your self-worth. And you need to stifle those voices in your head that are probably telling you that you are not good enough. You are more than what your boss makes you feel. So find other pursuits that help with repairing your self-esteem. Now that could be a hobby that you enjoy doing, or it could be a side hustle that gives you a feeling of achievement. It could be a course that you enroll for that gives you a sense of performance and achievement. Remember, a narcissistic boss can only make you feel down if you let them do it. So always remember that. Don't let your self-worth be destroyed. Okay, so in this episode, let's look at another don't when it comes to dealing with a narcissist as your boss. Don't get into an ego clash. Don't make this about a power struggle. You know, he or she did this to me, so I'm going to deal the same way to him or her. Just accept that when it comes to authority in your company, your boss holds the trump card. In fact, I'd go to the other extreme and say, find ways in which you can actually feed their ego. That's something that really pleases a narcissist, but be subtle about it. Don't suck up to them. I'm not suggesting that you suck up to them. But, you know, the reality is that if they have reached that position in the company, there must be something good that they're doing. You just need to be with the mindset to be able to appreciate that something. So genuine compliments given in a subtle manner can really help you. Just make sure you're not always in a confrontational mode, because you'll only make matters worse for yourself. I'm just suggesting that say nice things whenever possible. Once in a while you might have to give the devil its due. And if you're able to do that to their superiors, if you say something nice about your boss to his or her superior, they'll come to know of it. And when they do, you tend to go away from the firing line. You see what I mean? That's why it's important not to get into an ego clash. Welcome to episode 4 in our series, Working with a Narcissistic Boss. And today's tip is, don't let them perceive you as a threat. You see, narcissists tend to be quite insecure. And if they feel that you're a threat to their position, they can get very nervous. Especially if you're just one level below them in the company hierarchy, then you're literally snapping at their heels, aren't you? The thing is, they want you to do a good job, because when you do a good job, it reflects well on them as your boss. But they don't want you to do such a good job that you end up being a threat. Because if they feel you're a threat, they'll do everything possible to neutralize that threat. And that means you'll get all the kinds of projects that nobody else wants to take up. You'll get unrealistic deadlines. There'll be a lot of fault finding with you. So they'll try and make your life miserable and try to project you as someone who's unsuitable for any promotions. I often found myself at the receiving end of this kind of treatment in a few of my jobs. Now, I was not aware of the mindset of a narcissist, and I wasn't aware of exactly what was going on, so I didn't handle it very well. Hopefully, if you land up in that situation, you will be better prepared. I just want to finish this episode by saying, let your boss see you as a collaborator, not a competitor. Today we are going to look at another do when it comes to working with a narcissistic boss. And today's message is, be careful when challenging them. There'll always be times when there might be a need to actually challenge your boss on what they're saying. So it's a tricky situation. You can't shy away from it in the interest of the job at hand, but at the same time, you've got to be careful. Make sure you have all the facts on hand, every fact related to that job you got to have on hand when you are taking up this challenge. Things like having the proper paper trail, whatever other evidence that you can gather to support your point of view. The tone in which you carry out this conversation is crucial. You should never have "I told you so" kind of tone. It's got to be calm, composed, and friendly. Don't let them see it as a challenge, more like a clarification. You might just approach it as a clarification. When I work with some of my clients who go through this kind of problems, I tend to role play with them. I play the role of the boss, and we might talk about a situation at their workplace, and we just play it out so they get confident when they actually have to carry out this conversation in real life. So that's the message for today. Collaboration, not challenging. Hi, guys. Here is today's tip on working with a narcissistic boss. And today's tip is a don't. Don't gossip about them. However tempting it may be, do not gossip with other colleagues about them. There'll be a lot of other people in the company who are probably going through the same challenges that you are going through with this person. So it's human nature to want to talk about what's going on. Don't. Please don't do that. Office walls have ears. even even if you're outside the office, you're meeting colleagues somewhere, even those walls have ears. In fact, if you ever get to a stage where you're about to say something that might be considered gossip about your boss, just look around you, look at the walls, and imagine that they've got ears all over them. I mean, that's one image that'll probably stop you from gossiping. See, office politics can be brutal, and the word gets round. The grapevine, as it's called, it is very active. And if your boss comes to know that you've been gossiping about them behind their backs, they'll be gunning for you. I remember at least one instance in my career when I flouted this cardinal rule because I was not aware, and I paid a heavy price for it. I hope you don't have to pay a price like that. So please remember, don't gossip about your boss. Hi there, my friend. We've reached the end of the series, the final episode of working with a narcissistic boss. And the question to consider in this final episode is, should you stay or leave? Now, if you use all the tips that we spoke about in the previous episodes and things still don't improve, what do you do then? Do you stay on or do you leave? Well, it comes down to your ability to find a job quickly. If you're in that enviable position of being able to walk out of one job and walk into another job that's even better, then I suppose you could consider leaving as soon as possible, because staying in a toxic environment is not going to be useful for you. In fact, it'll take a toll on your health. So, in the interest of your own welfare, if you can leave and everything else lines up well, then sure, that's a good option. But it's not always easy, is it? Firstly, finding another job that ticks all the boxes in quick time is not going to be easy. And secondly, what if you like everything else about that job that you're in now? Maybe you're getting paid well, maybe it's close to home, maybe you enjoy working with your colleagues, maybe you like dealing with your customers, maybe you just like the nature of the job. But the only thing that's a negative is this terrible boss of yours. So is it worth giving up all the positives just for this one negative? And then the other thing to consider is there are no guarantees in this world, right? Nothing is 100% guaranteed. Remember those ads for disinfectants? Kills 99.9% of germs. It's never 100%, is it? So, if you take the trouble of finding another job and then you go over there thinking that you've left all your troubles behind, what if you end up with another jerk for a boss who might be another narcissist? So, you've got to consider these things very carefully and then make a decision. Well, that's it for this series, my friend. I hope you found it useful. I hope there are some tips that you got out of this. I'd love to get your feedback. And if you need any more assistance, then do reach out to me. My contact details will be in the comments below. Thank you for watching. Take care.